it is pretty good to be...
Shantae's a poop ninja. A poop ninja!
It's alright, buddy. We'll get it taken care of in the next Witch Ninja. Anyway, hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. Sorry I've been gone for almost 3 weeks. I literally just got back from my much-needed 2-week vacation in Japan. And, boy, Aki and I had a good time. Well, except for the fact that I'm still fighting a dumb cold I caught abroad, which is why I sound strange, but we hit up a samurai museum, 2 castles, unwound in our favorite onsen, Uedo Onsen Monogatari, and Iga, the biggest HQ for ninja in Japan. Lordy, what didn't we do there? Yeah, I do admit a good chunk of this trip was devoted to some much-needed R&R, but a good portion was also devoted to getting some fresh new ideas and some HD assets for future videos. For example, I've got another Monster Hunter video just brewing about everyone's favorite murder puppy, as well as a look into the cultural justifications of Pokemon's bizarre family lineage of Jennies and Joys. And Witch Ninja? Yeah, I think half of my 1,300 pictures were purely for that show. But during my 2 weeks in Japan, there was something that just couldn't escape me. Something that was on my mind the entire trip and honestly still has me thinking today. It's not a deep-rooted, historically driven cultural concept like so many of the things I usually talk about, but rather a curious take on a popular culture trend that I'm keeping a close eye on now. Merchandising.
Merchandising! Merchandising! Where the real money from the movie is made.
That sounds ridiculous, right? Like, who cares? It's stuff for nerds and otaku who like to waste money on after the fact when it comes to a new game or new anime, right? Well, let me tell you about my time in Akihabara on this trip, because there was a lot of time devoted to this so-called anime and gaming mecca of Japan. 4 times I visited Akiba. Once with Tomo and Hutch, once with just myself and Aki, another with my friends Matt and Jess, and a final time with AnnaTuber Joey the Anime Man. In those 4 visits, I think I hit every major shop for games and anime that exist. Mandarake, Kotobukiya, Akihabara Daijyo Kaikan, Wonder Goo. Granted, there are always going to be a few hole-in-the-wall shops that can be easily missed, but I think in the 4 times I went to Akiba, I covered all of the popular places expected to have the newest releases and most recent merch from said releases. There was only one problem. There was no merch. Okay, well, let me clarify that statement a little. When it comes to gaming, merchandise follows hand in hand with new releases. For example, with the advent of Kirby Star Allies for the Switch last March, the already hyper-popular Pink Puffball and Friends had an even bigger push for merchandise of all kinds. From plushies, to hard plastic figures, to chopsticks, to fingernail clippers, even a tissue box holder in the shape of Wispy Woods. And the newest Kirby game only released a month prior. And Monster Hunter? Oh boy. For a game that came out only a few months ago, there was a massive swath of new kinds of merchandise that revolved around each and every new monster that came from Monster Hunter World. From mystery box pulls to pewter figures to even plushies. Even Disney was killing in these shops. With the advent of Star Wars The Last Jedi, not only were there a bunch of new figures from that movie, but tons of new figures that hybridize the modern movie with Japan's classic feel to make even more fantastic merch. And Infinity Warp? You couldn't walk 30 feet in any given direction in Akiba and not find advertising for Marvel with figures, posters, buttons, pins, any other kinds of goods you can think of not far behind. All in all, it seemed like new games and movies had hot new money-making merch right at their heels. But there was one thing, a very obvious thing that seemingly dragged far and behind in terms of popular merch turnaround. The one thing you think wouldn't languish behind. Anime merch. I mean, yeah, Akihabara was still crammed to the brim with goods from countless series both popular and obscure, but new? It was non-existent. And this blew my mind because this year we've seen an amazing lineup of new IPs like My Hero Academia, Agretsuko, Darling in the Franxx, Magical Girl Ore, Golden Kamui, and with those have come some fantastic reboots and tributary series like Cutie Honey, Lupin the Third Part 5, Megaloboxing, Gegege no Kitaro. There's just so much damn good anime, but guess what? No merch! Or if there is merch, it's lacking so poorly that it might as well not exist. And again, I know a lot of you are probably wondering why on earth am I making such a big deal about this? It's just stuff! It's overpriced plushes and figures that just take up space. But the thing is, merch is oftentimes the lifeblood of a franchise or series. It's typically what makes the most money considering piracy still runs rampant and DVD Blu-ray sales aren't what they used to be. What's more is that merchandise is also a pretty sizable gauge to determine popularity within the general public. Typically, a new show, anime, or what have you is released with a small portion of merchandise to go alongside it, something to test the waters without investing too much money into it. If it sells, the franchise makes more and more and more, determined by how popular the series is. That's why when you go into stores in Akiba, you'll find no shortage of figures from hard-hitting series like Naruto, Dragon Ball, One Piece, and so on. But when it came to new series that everyone I know was raving about, there was just nothing. So to set some examples, let me specifically talk about 3 particular series that have made some pretty recent splashes within the anime community: Darling in the Franxx, Aggretsuko, and My Hero Academia. And while I say they're recent, these 3 series are not fresh out of the spring season. All of them have had at least 2 seasons to foster fandoms and hype. Heck, in the case of Aggretsuko, it's had since 2016 to build up a fandom, but I digress. Let's start with Darling in the Franxx. Debuting back in mid-January 2018 around the same time as Monster Hunter World, despite the criticisms, Darling in the Franxx has been an interesting interpretation of not only the mecha genre, which has been languishing as of late, but also a curious social commentary piece about relationships and the way that the traditional world has viewed them. If you can look past the fact that the mechs are drift piloted using butt controls and some of the more one-dimensional characters, the metaphors really start to jump out at you. Religious regulation of sex and relationships, the X factor of human lust, the expectation of children in Orthodox communities, arranged marriages, the harrowing future of human relationships or lack thereof, curiosity of same-sex relationships, the breaking of traditional vows. Nearly every single episode either dives into or at least dances around social commentary that is completely relevant for the modern age. And even though there's all the seemingly boring talk and social commentary, there are fantastic fight sequences between mech and monster. But despite this, despite the unique designs of both character and mech, despite the action, despite the clever social commentary, despite everything that makes this show good, everywhere I went in Japan, nothing. No merchandise. And I know merch of Darling in the Franxx exists, but only because I found it online. Nowhere in Akihabara or Japan itself could I find it on shelves. In fact, the only trace of the show that I could find was a single statue in one of Akiba's main drag shops. That was it. And how about Aggretsuko, the charming, well-designed, brilliantly written series that's been around since 2016? Well, granted, at the time it was a series of 100-some-odd shorts, while the main series of 10 fleshed-out episodes released in the US literally right before I left for Japan, but man, this series has made an impact. Every time I checked my phone while I was overseas, there was nothing but fan art and funny stories, and that made me freaking ecstatic. Aggretsuko is a fantastic look into the modern working world of Japan, specifically for women. The crap that they have to put up with, the ways that they escape that stress, and the ultimate decisions they have to make. And everyone is written so well. Mainly Netsuko is reserved and polite till she finds her escape in death metal. Feneko is an absolute riot. Haeda's best boy. Gori and Washimi are an absolute scream. And even the series' literal chauvinist pig, director Ton, has glimmers of humanity underneath his layers upon layers of hateable BS. And damn it, everyone's design is adorable. This is Hello Kitty levels of cute and marketability. And can I say again, the internet is absolutely bonkers for this show. Seriously, type in the hashtag Aggretsuko into Twitter and just look at how much fan art there is. But guess what? In the 2 weeks I rolled around in Japan, there was one store that had any Netsuko merch to speak of. And even then, the merch was severely limited. Every plush, every bag, every shirt, everything, except for a handful of stickers, was Netsuko only, the series lead. No Feneko, no Haida, no Washimi, nothing. And now we come to My Hero Academia, and my god, this is such a crime. If you know anything about modern anime, I don't have to tell you a single reason why this show is one of the best things to grace the medium in the last decade. But if you don't, let me put it this way. Every character is written stunningly well. From main to minor characters, from those that get the center of attention to characters who are literally invisible. Even some of the most hate-worthy characters in the series. Heroes, villains, everyone is created and built with attention and care rivaling any other Shonen Jump character from any of its existing franchises. And the animation, my god, the animation! This is the first anime I've seen where I absolutely refuse to read the manga ahead simply because I want to experience this series' stories in its animated form. Fight sequences, human interaction, comedy, even some of the wild takes in the show are some of the best I've seen in a long time. There is no excuse. There should be merchandise lining the shelves rivaling that of Naruto and One Piece. It's just that good. Yet there was so little. In 3 of the 4 trips to Akihabara, only once did I see anything in the figure shops. Even then, it was only the Bakugo Deku set most of us fans are familiar with. The only other exception was a single end cap with barely anything to speak of. Maybe 2 shirts, a few Todoroki plushes, and a handful of keychains. It was only by luck I was able to get the last keychain of Best Girl. I had come to Japan specifically looking for what merch I could of My Hero, and I left with almost nothing. And like I said, maybe I just wasn't looking in the right places, but I walked Akiba up and down half a dozen times looking for these series and found next to nothing. But you know what was present in almost every single store in abundance, so staggering it was almost nauseating? Moe. To those of you wondering what the heck moe is, it's generally speaking an otaku term of heavy non-sexual affection for a particular character or trope of character. Clumsy, glasses wearing, any of the various dedes, the mighty list goes on. But in nearly all cases, they're characters that are deemed cute in one fashion or another. But again, not a physical attraction kind of cute, more like a small puppy must protect cute. And in all things, it was omnipresent. New stock in every store save for maybe one or two shops was filled to the brim with cute anime girl figures with only a handful of things like Puramo differentiating it at all. And that's when it kinda hit me. All of these new shows and reboots that I've been talking about lack the moe trope that's dominated the otaku market for the last 10 some odd years. It's something that I discussed with a couple of friends while I was there. Akihabara isn't really a mecca of new anime anymore. It's more of a bazaar for regulated trope waifus. And I know what you're gonna say. Oh Gaijin, of course you would hate on it, you've always hated moe. But that's not entirely true. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Moe is anime junk food and it's absolutely okay to have once in a while. It tastes great, it comes in a variety of flavors, but if it's all you eat, you're gonna get fat and lethargic, never challenging yourself to watch anything different, just continuing to mindlessly chomp on these snacks. Moe's fine, but anime needs to be more than that. In my opinion, anime does one thing better than even live-action cinema does: portray the human condition. Whether it be an exaggerated expression or simply the personification of an extreme emotion, anime's greatest strength is to portray human emotions in ways that no other artistic medium can. And when that uniqueness is ripped away, when all there is a formula to please the simplest parts of our brain, how is this artistic medium any better than the boring traditional mediums we criticize? That's why the lack of merch for these particular shows really spooked me, because either the producers of the show don't believe it's strong enough to sell said merch, or the domestic otaku market in Japan is becoming more and more complacent to only want more moe junk food. Despite the fact that in all these shows there's something to love on a relatively moe level. Netsuko is a good girl who needs protecting. 02's brash behavior and lustful attitude probably has otaku worldwide wanting her to step on them. And My Hero's heroines are not only well written and strong, but quite foxy if I can say. My point is, these shows have phenomenal writing, wonderful messages, and encapsulates the human emotions of desire, control, justice, and more, but can also fall into simplistic categories that would sell merch to the otaku community. Yet, perhaps because they don't go all in with the tropes, they're not as popular. In fact, I've heard the term not anime being thrown around to describe shows like Agretsuko, and that only makes me wonder, what then is anime? These shows are seemingly so rarely advertised for, and so little product-wise have come from them. For every keychain of a well-written, well-designed character I've seen, there's a dozen more big titty anime figures, and I don't know. I guess that's something that's got me curious about the subculture we call otakudom and where it might be heading domestically.
Oh man. Wait, you're back already?
Dude, it's been almost 3 weeks. You've been in shock for like half a month.
Sorry, I guess I kinda lost it with that whole Shantae poop ninja thing last time.
Well, don't worry, because speaking of My Hero Academia, we're going to be looking into one of its greatest ninja and how their quirk makes for the backbone of one of the shinobi's greatest abilities next time on Witch Ninja. But thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, this is Gaijin Goombah, signing out.